As we have discussed about permission, possibility, and ability in models, now starting with necessity and compulsion. In necessity and compulsion, the model used are must, have to, and have got to. We use must or have to express the necessity or compulsion. Often they can be used interchangeably. For example, I must work hard to improve my performance, and in the first sentence as I've used must as a model, in that we can use have to in place of must as well. For example, I have to work hard to improve my performance. Second is there is a slight difference between must and have to. In must, the authority comes from the speaker, and in have to, the authority comes from outside the speaker. For example, you must be in your seat by 6. That is what I'm insisting. Second, you have to be in your seat by 6. This is what as it has been expressed is as the rule. My back pain is getting worse. I must go to see the doctor. That means I think it is necessary to be done. Second, if I say I have to see my doctor this evening, that this means that there is an appointment. For example, we have to hurry up is formal, and in second, if I say we have got to hurry up is informal. Next, in necessity and compulsion, models used are also must not, don't have to, don't need to, and need not to. Must not suggest a compulsion or obligation not to do something, or you can say a prohibition to do something. For example, you are still weak, you must not exert yourself. Second, you must not wash that sweater, it has to be dry cleaned. Second, in don't have to and don't need to, haven't got to, need not, all suggest that there it is not necessary to do something. For example, we are dining out, you don't have to cook. And second example, I'll be able to look after myself, you need not worry. Need not. Need not is often used to suggest the speaker's permission not to do something. For example, there isn't much work today, you need not stay till 6. Next is suggestion. Few models they suggest about suggestion. It gives you advice. It tells you about your duty or say obligation. So in this, the models used are should and ought to. Both should and ought to can be used to ask for and give suggestion or advice, to talk about duty or obligation and to say what is right or good. Often they can be used interchangeably. For example, you should not raise your voice, and in that case I can use ought to. For example, you ought not to raise your voice. It means the same. Second example, how much money should I carry with me? And in that case I can again use a model ought to. How much money ought I to carry with me? Again mean the same. Second, ought to carries with it a sense of moral obligation. So, if a sentence suggests a moral obligation, ought to used is preferred. For example, you ought to be fair in your dealing. Second, you ought not to offend people with your outspoken comment. Now, should or ought to plus have plus past participle. Should or ought to plus have plus past participle is used to suggest that some did not what was desirable. For example, I'm sorry, I should have informed you well in time. That means That thing which was to be informed was not informed in time. Next example, tomorrow's match is of crucial importance. The team should have gone for net practice, but it did not go. Next is deduction, in which we use the model must and can't. We use must. Should I continue? In deduction, we use the model must and can't. We use must in deduction to say that we are sure of something. For example, it is 10 a.m., so Mr. George must be in his office. A very chilly wind is blowing and you are not properly protected. You must be feeling cold. Next is the negative of must is meant is can't. The negative of must in this meaning is can't. For example, Mr. Sehgal left only 5 minutes ago. He can't be far. Second example, I can hear music from Rat's room, so she can't be asleep. Must have or can't have or could not have plus past participle. Must have, can't have or couldn't have plus past participle are used for deduction about the past. For example, you can't or you could not have gone for shopping yesterday. It was Sunday and all the markets were closed. Second example, what a palatial building and how luxuriously furnished. You must have spent a fortune on it. In model, few models are used for requests and they are can, could, will and would. Asking for anything, we use can and could. We use can and could to ask for things. For example, can I have a glass of water, please? Now, if you say can I get a glass of water? But if you say can I get a glass of water, please, that please is adding a politeness to your request. Could I see the pen, please? Again, could is more polite than can, and it depends upon the person you're talking to. If you're talking to your friend, you can say can. If you're talking to somebody who is elder to you, you'll use could. Asking for someone to do something, again can and could is used. We often use can, that is, are you able to ask someone to do something for us. For example, can you give me a lift to the market or could you advise me on this? Third is that asking someone to do something, again you used will and would. We also use will, that is, are you willing to ask somebody to do something. For example, will you close that window please? Second, would you speak a bit slowly? Would is more polite than will. We can also use would you mind to take polite request? Would you mind repeating what you just said? Sometimes we use would like to make polite request. For example, I would like a glass of water please. Again, a polite request. If you speak about polite request, you can use would as well. Next, talking about suggestions. In this, the models used are shall we, can, and could. We often use shall we to ask for and to make suggestion. For example, what shall we play? What time shall we leave? That means you are asking for suggestion. Second two examples. First, shall we play Scrabble? And the second example, shall we leave by it? This is what you're making a suggestion. Second, we use can, could to make suggestion. For example, I'm feeling so bored. Second, you can watch the cricket match. You could sit in the meditation. In the use, could is less direct and polite than can. It is more usual to use could. Now there are a few things which should be noted. We can also make suggestions in the following ways using let's, Let's go for a swim using why don't we, you, etc. Why don't we switch off the light and go to sleep? Second, why don't you try writing poetry? And third, you can use for how about. For example, how about having a game of tennis? And the fourth one which you can use is by using should and ought to. For example, we should to advertise our product on metro station, and in place of should we can also use ought to. Then talking about promise. Will and shall is a model which can be used for promise. Will and shall are used to suggest promise or assurance. Will with I and we and shall with other subject carry the force of a promise. For example, I will stand by you through thick and thin. You can depend upon that. Second example, these people may be poor, but they shall be given a fair trial. However, since it is now common to use will with all subjects to indicate the future time, some other words may be added to strengthen the idea of a promise. For example, I assure you I will return this book latest by Monday. In wish, the model used is may. May is normally used to express a wish. For example, may you ever live in bliss. May you be blessed with a long life. We put a exclamation at the end of the sentence. Now, next is absence of necessity. In this we use need not have, did not have. Need not have plus past participle suggests that someone did something that was not necessary. So doing it was a waste of time and energy. For example, we need not have made such lavish arrangement. Very few guests turned up. Second, did not need to suggest that something was not done because it was not necessary to do it. For example, we did not need to make lavish arrangement. We have invited only a handful of people.